Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped or unconditionally obeyed except for Him. And we bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last messenger. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His blessings on him, the prophets before him, his family, and everyone who died in the state of Iman. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, last time I was up here, we concluded the second part of Prophet Yousuf alayhi salam's life, and today, inshallah, we will be speaking about the third and final part of his life. So far what has happened in his childhood, he was given a strange dream in which his father has interpreted he would be a king, a very powerful man. And so his brothers, becoming jealous of this, they had thrown him into a well. And he was found by travelers who had sold him off to a slave in Egypt. He had lived with one of the high-ranking officials in Egypt, and he had gone through so many hardships, eventually landing in jail. And so far, if you look at his life as a graph, it started at a very high point. He was living a good life. He had food, he had shelter, he had water, and he was living with his father, who was a prophet, and all of his brothers, who he assumed that they loved him. And then it starts to slope down as he's sold into Egypt. And you think it's going back up again because he's living under this high-ranking official. But then the wife of that official, she tries to deceive him, she tries to lure him, and then that eventually leads him into going to prison. And again, it's going down again, and then he's stuck in prison. But then he gets that miracle where he's able to interpret dreams, and then he starts to interpret the dreams of the prisoners around him. Then he asks that man, the cupbearer, saying, "Oh, will you please ask the king for my freedom?" And then Shaitan made that man forget, and again his life is sloping down. And if you look at it, the life of Prophet Yousuf alayhi salam is just complete ups and downs. There's never this moment in his life where he can say, "I am set to relax, I'm set to have this peace in my life." Because even when he was living with that that ranking official, he would always think in the back of his mind, where are my brothers? Where is my youngest brother, the brother who is younger than me? Where is my father? All these people, even though I'm living this life where it's supposed to be good, I'm supposed to be happy, there's all these gaps in my life and all these gaps in my deen that I need to have fulfilled. So inshallah today we'll be picking off for when the king himself, he had such a strange dream, he had no idea how to interpret it, and when he woke up he felt confused, he felt shaken. He was like, this has to have some sort of meaning that I am not understanding. He said to himself that there has to be someone who can interpret this to me. So he brought people before him, like his advisor, a priest, and people of his cabinet, and he said to them, "This is the dream I have had. What do you interpret?" The priest said to him that it's just a normal dream and nothing comes of it. The people of his cabinet and his advisor told him that there could be an underlying meaning, but honestly we have no idea. And the cupbearer who was working, the man who was with Yousuf in prison, he starts to hear these rumors going on in the castle saying, "Oh, the king had a dream, the king had this dream, so and so." And then he remembers what Shaitan had blocked from his memory. He said, "Oh my God, there was Yousuf alayhi salam. He had told me to tell the king about his innocence, and I had completely forgotten." And so he ran to the king and told him that your dream, it can be interpreted by one man that is sitting in a prison, an innocent man. So the king said, "Why is an innocent man sitting in the prison?" And he told him the story of how Yousuf alayhi salam had gone into that prison. He said, "I want to see this man." So he sent a couple guards to go to Yousuf alayhi salam, and they relayed the dream of the king. So Yousuf alayhi salam, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him clarity. And then he had said that this dream means that there will be famine in your kingdom after a great years of harvest, great years of wealth and prosperity in your kingdom. There will be famine, and that will make a lot of people pass away, and a lot of people will struggle during this time. So the guards relayed this to the king, and he thought, how is such a smart man, how is such a man with disability sitting in this prison? He said, "I want to see this man face to face." So the guards went back and they told Yousuf alayhi salam, "Oh Yousuf, the king wants to see you, so let us take you out of his prison." He said, no, I will not come out of this prison until my innocence is proven. Because he said, if I'm let out of this cage without my innocence being proven, then people will think that I'm just being let out by the king. And subhanAllah, this is how smart Yusuf alayhi salam was. He thought ahead of time. He knew that if he wanted to get out of prison as a good person, he wanted to be seen as this man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had to get out with his innocence. So he looked back on his case. The king looked back on his case and saw, the wife of the official, how she had done these things to him. So she called her before him, and then he said to her, did Yusuf alayhi salam ever wrong you? And of course, she's standing in front of the king of Egypt, and she was like scared, shaken. She didn't want to lie, so she said, no, Yusuf alayhi salam had never wronged me. So then she said, why did you claim Yusuf alayhi salam had wronged you? And she said, because I thought he was a handsome person. I thought I could manipulate him. And then they said, okay, you are the real criminal. We will get Yusuf alayhi salam out now. This is the real facts of the case. We want this written down and get Yusuf alayhi salam out of prison. So now he had proven Yusuf alayhi salam's innocence, and Yusuf alayhi salam walked out of that prison and he met the king. And the second the king had saw Yusuf alayhi salam standing in front of him, he immediately knew that this is a man who should have never been put in prison. This is a man I would never even think to put into that prison cell. Because, brothers and sisters, Yusuf alayhi salam, he was not only one of the most beautiful prophets, but he held himself with such high shoulders, and knowing him and even speaking to him, you will see that he's such a great man. He's a man of kindness. He's a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's a man that was always trying to do the best for everyone. So the king sat and talked with him for a minute and said, how do we deal with this famine you speak of? And he said, before that you will be given a time of great prosperity. So what we can do in this time is harvest and take advantage of what Allah is giving us, and then use it to protect us from the famine. So the king said, I want you in charge of all of this. And Yusuf alayhi salam accepted this role. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he had become that, he was given that high-ranking role of managing all the food and all the crops in all of Egypt during the time of prosperity and during the time of famine. So during the time of prosperity, he had ordered that every single second was used wisely, and every single grain was harvested to its best ability, and most of it, all the extras were stored away in time for the famine. And subhanAllah, again, Yusuf alayhi salam, he was right, the ability he was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And right after that prosperity, there was the days where there was completely no water, there was droughts, there was famine, the crops wouldn't grow right. And again, the king is sitting on his throne, and he's looking out and he's seeing, again, Yusuf alayhi salam, he's completely right. I always had, of course, I want to believe him, but there's always that doubt in the back of your mind. If someone tells you that they can interpret your dreams and they can tell you what's going to happen, maybe you'll believe them, maybe you'll have some faith in them because they're a good friend or they're a good person, but you always have that doubt in the back of your mind. You always have that whisper saying, this man's a liar, this man, how no one can perceive the future. But brothers and sisters, these are the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the king, he went to Yusuf alayhi salam and he said, I want to thank you so much. Without your guidance, this country would have lost completely. We would have had so many people die in this time of famine. And he said, but now other nations are calling towards us. What do we do? And Yusuf alayhi salam said, again, as always, first, a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted us this ability to have all these extra grains. We should give it to them at a discounted price, so we're still at least gaining something. So again, the famine had not only reached Egypt, but it always reached the places around in Canaan. And this is where actually the father of Yusuf alayhi salam had lived, and his brothers, Prophet Yaqub. So this famine actually affected them too. And once they heard that in Egypt, that grains would be given out, the Prophet Yaqub, he gave them a sack of gold. And he told them, bring back, grains for us so we could survive. So the brothers set out again, but they didn't go with Benjamin, who was the youngest of the brothers, because Prophet Yaqub never trusted them after what they did to Yusuf alayhi salam. So Prophet Yaqub and Benjamin, they stayed back, and the other brothers, they went to go get the grains. And once they arrived there, they're getting the grains and stuff. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he hears, there's these a lot of brothers, they're coming from a faraway land, in Canaan, and then he's like, oh, these are my brothers, I know these people. So he goes down to, where they're giving out the grains, and then he, again realizes, yeah, these are my brothers, he recognized them. But the brothers didn't recognize him at all. Why? Because to them, Yousuf alayhi salam was dead. To them, Yousuf alayhi salam didn't even exist anymore. They saw him a couple times when he was a kid, and then after that, they threw him in the well. They had forgotten completely about him. Of course, they always had that guilt in their heart and that guilt in their mind of what they did to Yousuf alayhi salam. But they never once again thought about it, or never tried to think about it, because to them, Yousuf alayhi salam was again, of course, gone to them. So Yousuf alayhi salam, he approached the brothers, and he said, where do you come from? He said, oh, we come from Canaan. We are the sons of a very, esteemed person, Prophet Yaqub, and we just come here to get grains. And then he said to them, again, this is such an odd question for a normal person to ask them. But again, Prophet Yusuf is their brother. He said, are you truthful people? Why is he asking this? Because he knows that they deceived his father, so they go throw him in the well. And they said, why are you asking this? Of course we are truthful people. We don't like to lie. And then he said, amongst you, shouldn't, is there a youngest brother? Shouldn't there be one more with you? And he said, yeah, but we left him at home with our father. And this started to bring tears to his eyes, because all he wanted to do was see his youngest brother, the youngest of them all, Benjamin. And then he told them, if you come back, if you need more grains, I won't allow you to unless you bring him with you, because I want to give you a proper share. So they of course said, okay, we'll be back with our brother. And while they were leaving, Prophet ﷺ had actually ordered one of the guards to put the pouch of gold that they had paid and put it back in the grain sack that they were giving to them. So as they traveled back to Canaan and they went to their father, they had told their father, the king is offering us, more grains than we should have, and he's saying that all you have to do is let Benjamin come with us. But Prophet Yaqub is not going to fall for the same thing twice. He said, you guys had let, Yousuf alayhi salam, I had trusted you with that person. I had trusted you with my son, Yousuf alayhi salam, and you guys had thrown him into a well. You guys had tried to get rid of him because of your jealousy. And they said, but Father, how are we supposed to get more food if we're going to starve in this famine? He said, I won't trust you anymore. So then, as they were sifting through the grains, they found this pouch of gold, and they showed it to their father. They said, look, Father, he had given us the money back that we had paid. It is going to be okay. They will keep Benjamin safe. Now, Prophet Yaqub, of course, no matter how much he doesn't want to give his Benjamin to his other children, he knows that at some point they're going to need more food. At some point they're going to run out. So as the food was getting scarce, he had told them, take Benjamin, but I want your word, I want your oath, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. I want your word that you bring Benjamin back. And they said, okay, we will bring Benjamin back. You have our word, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. So they took Benjamin and they set out to Egypt, and they had brought Benjamin to the palace, and they told him, oh, minister of the grains, we had brought our youngest brother. So he took them all in, and he had set a feast for them, and he had them sitting in pairs. And Benjamin was sitting alone, and he started to cry. And then Yousuf alayhi salam asked, why are you crying, oh, youngest child? And then he said, because we are all sitting in pairs. If my brother Yousuf was here with me, I would have sat with him, but he is not, and now I'm sitting alone. So after the feast, he had ordered the other brothers to go away, and he held Benjamin back. And he said, Benjamin, would you accept me as your brother? And Benjamin said, I see you as a great person. I see you as a high official. And of course, you are a truthful and honest man, but you can never replace Yousuf alayhi salam. And then, Yousuf alayhi salam started to break, this facade he's trying to keep on. And he said, Benjamin, I am your brother. I am Yousuf alayhi salam, who had been thrown in that well so long ago. And Benjamin started to break down with him. He started to hug his brother. So long, he hadn't seen him all these years. And he told Benjamin, but you can't tell the rest of our brothers, and I want to spend this time with you, because still their test has yet to come. So Benjamin agreed. And then he said, oh, but I want to spend more time with you as well, but we have to leave tomorrow. And he said, it's okay, I have a plan. Again, Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he's a smart person. So what he had done, he had told his guards to put a golden cup, a golden measuring cup, into Benjamin's saddle. And as they were leaving, the guards had stopped them and said, oh, you have stolen the king's cup. And they said, we haven't stolen anything, we only came here for food. So they started to check their bags, and as they were checking their bags, they had asked them, what is the ruling in your, in your town, in your area, for a person who has stolen? And they said, oh, the person who has stolen has to stay as a slave for the person he has stolen from. And said, okay, we will use your logic, we will use your ruling if we find something. Again, Prophet Yusuf is smart. He had ordered these guards to do this. Why? Because he wants to spend time with his youngest brother. The youngest brother who had done no wrong to him. The youngest brother who he had always wanted to see after all these years. So, finding that cup in Benjamin's saddle, they told him, we are going to keep Benjamin here. And the eldest of all the brothers, he had come forward and said, but our father, he's going to be so angry. He had entrusted us with Benjamin. How are we supposed to come back and face him without him? And they said, well, we have nothing to say to you. He had stolen from us. So the eldest brother also stayed and said, you guys go back. I will stay with Benjamin to ensure his safety. So the other brothers went back without Benjamin and without the eldest child. And as in Egypt, Yusuf was spending time with Benjamin, trying to catch up all these years. And they had kept a watchful eye on the eldest brother, keeping him separated. And again, he doesn't even know that this, high-ranking official is Yusuf alayhi salam. None of them know. And as they go back, they tell their father, I'm going to try to, speed up here because we're running out of time. They went back to Prophet Yaqub and they told him, oh, we have lost Benjamin. And Prophet Yaqub, he had always wept for Yusuf alayhi salam. He started to weep more for Benjamin. And this actually started to hurt his vision. And he started to go partially blind. And his sons are thinking, what are we supposed to do now? Our father, he's going partially blind from all this crying. We have to go get Benjamin back. So they went back to go get Benjamin. And they went to Yusuf alayhi salam. And they started begging on their knees. And they started saying, please, oh please, you official, let us take our brother back. Our father is weeping. Yusuf alayhi salam, seeing his brothers on their knees, he can't even take this anymore. He said, why, if you guys claim to be truthful people before, and you guys are now on your knees begging, so why are you still the type of people to throw your brother in the well? And at this moment they knew that this was Yusuf alayhi salam, because no other person in the world knew that secret outside their family. So they started to get down more, they started to get down their hands and knees saying, oh, we're so sorry, Yusuf, please forgive us. You're this high-ranking official now, but please bring Benjamin back. Our father, he is weeping. So what they actually did, Yusuf alayhi salam, he gave them a cloth, one of his shirts. They went back to Prophet Yaqub. He put it over his eyes, and he was eventually healed. And then Prophet Yaqub, he goes back with the sons to go see Benjamin and Yusuf alayhi salam. He starts weeping once he sees Yusuf alayhi salam and Benjamin. And then all these people of his family who had wronged him, they all start getting down on their knees, begging for forgiveness, not only by him, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, we go back to that dream he had where he saw the stars and the moon and the sun all bowing down towards him. That dream, all the way in the beginning, all the way when he was a child, years ago, is now coming into effect now. So brothers and sisters, this is the beautiful story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Inshallah ta'ala, we can all learn something from this. And just one quick thing I want to say is that when you look at Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's story, like I said, it's not a straight graph. It's always ups and downs, ups and downs. But this entire time, Yusuf alayhi salam, he kept mindful that this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's trials. And one day I will be able to get through it. It feels like hardship now. It feels so wrong now. But later on, it will come into effect. Like, he was in prison. Guys, this is a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was put into prison, with all these other criminals. And now, at the end of his life, he's a high-ranking official. All these people who had wronged him, they're bowing down to him, asking for forgiveness. So inshallah ta'ala, we can all learn something from this story. Inshallah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep us away from shaitan. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please pray.